Because here we get Paul saying, one of you says I follow Paul, one of you says I follow Apollos, another I follow Cephas, and still another I follow Christ. Except, isn't that the whole game? I mean, that's the objective, right? To follow Christ. What is Paul's problem with that? Well, what I think Paul is getting at here is this tendency that all of us have to slowly over-spiritualize opinions and confuse them with Jesus. Have you ever discussed theology with someone and they say, well, sorry, I just believe the Bible? And you want to say, yeah, no kidding, we all do. We wouldn't be here having this conversation if we didn't. Figuring it out is hard. That's why we're all still wrestling with it 2,000 years later. I think what Paul is saying here is that no, you should not be lining up in different camps against each other, but also that doesn't make you any more spiritual just because you don't acknowledge your influences. I mean, sometimes, honestly, that just makes you kind of maybe a little bit arrogant. We're all doing our best to follow Jesus. We're all doing our best to work out our faith in real time. You and I, we are doing the best with what we're given. Let's not start dunking on each other and saying, I'm the one who follows Jesus just yet. And honestly, that right there is the heart of this whole opening passage. The key that is going to unlock everything in this series when we talk about making good choices, when Paul starts to address very specific situations. Because Paul does not see difference as a negative. Paul sees division as the enemy to avoid. Let's look again at verse 10 here. I appeal to you in the name of Christ that all of you agree with one another in what you say, and that there be no divisions among you, but that you be perfectly united in mind and thought. A couple things here. First of all, there's no word for agree with one another here anywhere in the Greek. The word is actually legete, which means to speak with one another. And so the heartbeat of this request is not that we all agree all the time on everything. It's actually more like Paul urging the community to speak together, to converse with one another, so that there is no division. The word is schismata, or schism, in the community. In fact, he wants them to speak this way to each other so that they can be perfectly united. That's what the NIV on the screen here has. But the operative word here is charitzo, which means to repair or mend something broken. Paul's point here is not you should all agree on all of your theology. In fact, you should probably all agree with me because you must have perfect unity if you're going to be good Christians. His point is something more like, look, you have to find ways to speak with each other in ways that will mend the tears in the fabric of this community. That's what it looks like to follow Jesus. Don't go around telling people you're on my side. Don't let me hear that. Don't go around telling people you're on Apollos or Peter's side. You better not let me hear you going around saying you're on Jesus' side as if everyone who disagreed with you is not. That's only going to make things worse. Instead, try to learn to speak in ways that knit the community back together again. Your mind should be focused together on what you offer to each other, even perhaps, maybe especially in your differences. Because notice this, the Apollos camp, the Peter camp, the Paul camp, none of those are made out to be villains here. It's the camps themselves that Paul wants to replace with loving community. At the end of the day, for Paul, the gospel is preached not in wisdom through eloquence, with rhetoric and arguments. It's preached through communities that embody the way of Jesus in the world. Neighbors that live out of the divine love that breaks our walls down. Neighbors that actually learn how to learn from each other. Neighbors that model divine love in how we figure out how to get along, even though sometimes we wrestle with each other.